All right. Welcome to the Operator SDK Issue Triage meeting. This meeting will be recorded, so don't say anything you want to be on the internet forever. Assuming you can all hear me, let's get started with the first issue here.
I can hear you.
Unable to build the Docker image for Operator. So I took a look through this for the meeting. It looks like this person's Operator project is using this module test applications, which doesn't look like it's being copied into the Docker container during the build step for their manager. So I just asked what their project looks like and whether they're actually copying this module in. And so I'm waiting for them to respond on that. So, because this is triage, I'll throw this into the backlog unless anybody has any objections or thoughts on this. Requeuing, reconcile stops working after 15 requeues. So what they're doing is they have, it looks like they have a field on their CR spec that can be either set to true or false. And when it's true, they do not want to requeue a reconciliation event. And otherwise, they do want to requeue that reconciliation event. What they're saying is after 15 requeues, if the CR spec value is false, then it doesn't get requeued again. And if it's true, then obviously it won't requeue. So I'm not exactly sure what is going on here. They're using a pretty old version of the SDK and of Kubernetes. So I'm not exactly sure what the defaults for controller runtime back then were, but does anybody know if after a certain number of requeues, the reconciler will like back off?
I don't think so.
I guess nobody knows, and I certainly don't. So it just looks like a question about, how requeuing actually works and whether they're doing something wrong here. Would anybody like to volunteer to research this and respond?
I can get to this one.
I'm interested in figuring out too, so whoever you want to put on there is fine.
Feel free. You can get to this one. I think what we need to do is. I think what we need to do is.
Hey, Ish, can I assign this to you?
Hey, can you hear us? Camilla's talking. She volunteered.
Camilla's been trying to.
If you're talking, I can't hear you.
That explains a lot.
Okay.
You see us?
Can I confirm that people can hear me right now?
B,
Sanity check.
C, D.
I can hear everybody.
We
Right.
can hear.
I guess
you.
I cannot be heard right now. Hold on.
Is he on
We
the same
should've-
meeting?
We should have had him. We should have had this go on the whole meeting. That would have been great. he's just assigning stuff.
There we go.
Boom!
Sorry about that. Does that sound like everybody?
You sound like you're in an airplane.
That's weird.
Well, you might have to adjust the mic level in Fedora. I have to do
Now
that.
it's better.
Okay, is it still bad?
That's better.
Much better.
No.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, Camilla
I think what
volunteered for
happened
this one.
was Okay.
Actually, Ken volunteered. You spoke about Aish as well, and they can do or
Well,
I can do no matter. More than one person volunteers this one.
if you volunteered, then I'll just select you.
Okay, so it's fine.
I think what happens is when I disconnect my headset and then reconnect it, Zoom does not know how to handle that. So that's fun.
That's okay. Zoom has crashed
Okay.
my computer twice during this meeting so far.
Great. Thanks, Zoom.
Sounds like boom.
All right, moving on. Operator SDK help for Helm Ansible shows only Go text. Right, so this is a known issue, and this is an upstream related issue because the CLI package should be printing some generic help text that doesn't relate to any operator type, or be able to read some like global plugin help information and print that.
This is a dupe of 3798.
Oh, is it? Whoops. Right. Okay. So I will close that issue in favor of this one. Yeah, so this is still an upstream issue. I'm wondering if we want to also close this one and say that this should be upstreams. And Austin, actually, because this is yours, do you want to take the initiative and recreate this upstream and then close this out once that's done?
Yeah, go ahead and assign me. And
I have one question about that. Could we not just replace the text for SDK, for example? Should you?
No.
My question is, okay. Do you don't
The
think
reason
that
for that, the reason for
Okay,
that is
sorry.
because if KubeBuilder CLI package is printing Go specific help text in any plugin scenario, then that means not just the SDK is affected. So this needs to be fixed upstream.
but I don't think it does that. Like, I guess I don't think I understand the implementation here, but since it shows the operator SDK Go help text when we're running the operator SDK command, I'm assuming that the help text is different if you're just running KubeBuilder-H, right?
No, this will be the same, I believe. It's just generic help text.
Yes, but for example, we cannot make a generic enough because the Kube Builder you show like the first one. The foreign line is blah, 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 the Go mod, do you know what I mean? Should not we have a way to like replace? I think we have. I think we can replace the text already with the current implementation.
One thing that we might want to check here, I might be remembering this wrong, but this might be defaulting to the help of the default plugin. And if the default plugin is the Go plugin, then you're going to get the help text for the Go plugin. I might be wrong on what's actually happening, but that seems like that could be what's happening here.
No, that's correct. And so what should happen is if this plugins flag isn't set, then we don't use the default help text for the default plugin. We just print out some generic stuff about how you should set this flag and then that will give you plugin specific help text.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you're right. And
But
I'll comment to that effect.
if you put a Helm, for example, you show the Helm one.
The one that
It
I just
would,
closed.
yeah. And Eric, don't we already have something that looks like that somewhere?
In KubeBuilder?
Yeah. I feel like I remember typing
so
something
that-
along those lines.
I think that had to do with project version.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Yeah. So we do that for project version, and now we need to do that for plugin as well. So yeah, once you file this issue, you can close this one, Austin. Okay. CLI implementation shows options commands which are not supported. Wait, I think I just, yeah. So we'll throw this, actually, we'll keep this out of the backlog because this is supposed to be closed. So if it's not done by next time, then we'll see it. Default service accounts cannot list resource. All right, so I responded to this a while ago. So I think I feel like I saw this problem recently as well. And I've seen this issue in logs before. So I think what's happening here is because when you run make deploy, customize will create a namespace that is like my operator -system and apply that namespace to all of your manifests before applying those manifests to the cluster. This person is using this test namespace test, and that is of a different form than the one that's automatically created by Customize. So I think they might actually be not using the right application or not applying their namespace that they want correctly. And yeah, I think they're a little bit confused about how that works down here. So yeah, I think that is what's happening here. So because I've already responded to this, I can follow up and I'll assign myself. And I'll put this into the backlog.
I just off a chat about this stuff in the past with Joe that I have tracked in my to-do list, which I understand that is related for we do something in upstream related to that to improve.
This particular issue that they're seeing.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, what would we have to do upstream to fix this?
I need to remember that.
Okay. Well, if you figure out
Yeah.
like if you figure out what you're talking about, then comment on this issue. But I'm 90% sure that the issue is that they're not setting the namespace correctly when they're running make deploy. So if that isn't the case, then maybe there is something we need to do upstream. But yeah, I'll triage this.
Sure.
Creating bundle for multi-group operators with groups at different levels fails. Okay. Right, I remember looking at this. So if the domain of the project is the immediate parent of the group, then it'll work. So if there's dot notation within the actual group itself, then it won't work. Looks like there's a suggested solution. This definitely has to do something with Go's package litter and the difference between like module path and directory path. So I'll need to look into this a little bit more, but I have a feeling I know where the problem is. So depending on how easy this is, I'd like to fix this ASAP. So I'm going to move this into the 1.4 timeframe. I think there are another couple of CSV bugs that I need to work on for 1.3, so I don't know if I'll get around to this one. If I do, then I'll bump it to 1.3, but if not, yeah. And I'm not 100% that this is a bug yet, so I'm not going to apply the bug label to it either. For Go samples, change the webhook scaffold in the sample. So what is the difference here, Camilla?
Is in the last one, defaulting for programmatic validation. Is that suggestion that you made? So if we change one sample, we need to change that one.
So this PR is already, it's still open, right? So can you not just make this update here?
No, because this will be just for V3 alpha, and we need to have a V2 and V3 with the same, change the sample, and probably we need to change things in the data that is scaffold as well, accordingly.
Right.
So
I guess my question is, the only difference here is that instead of specifying this flag twice, which is, it seems like a bug, you're just specifying programmatic validation. So you're saying that here we need to be adding a validated webhook.
If we do that, we will change the samples. We need to fix the mock data. The way that this will change the scaffold file, and we need to change the position, what will replace it, things like that. So if you change just for V3 alpha, we are unable to compare V2 versus V3 alpha and check the difference. So it would be nice have in my opinion, the both samples with the same scenario, exactly the same, for we just compare what change from one version to another. I don't know if it just makes sense.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. So this issue is specifically for Go V2.
Yeah, if we have the V3 alpha measured, we do for both. If we have just V2, we can do just for V2 and keep V3 alpha equals with the same scenario.
Right. And because this is duplicated, is this a bug?
I don't think this is a bug.
All right. So yeah, I guess we'll just leave the labels as is. And can I send this to you?
Yes.
And do you think you'll be able to get this done by 1.3?
I think so.
Okay. Great.
Not too hard, I just split it to be easier to review as well.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Okay. Status conditions helper from operator lib was removed from docs not updated. Right, so we originally made a change to our docs that said instead of using the operator lib status package, use the upstream meta v1.condition struct. And that was premature because none of our Go plugins support Kubernetes 1.19 yet, which is when the meta v1.condition was added. So we reverted that, and now we need to unrevert that PR, and that's what I've linked here. And because Varsha, you created that docs change PR originally, I assigned you to this. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So we don't have plans to bump. Well, I guess if we're adding the Go v3 alpha plugin, we will be bumping to Kubernetes 1.19 in the alpha plugin, but that is not the default plugin that is used for scaffolding. The default uses 1.18. So I don't want to say that this is going to go into 1.3. And I'm actually not sure which milestone this would go into. It really depends on when the Go v3 alpha plugin is stabilized to Go v3. And then when we bump that in the SDK, then we can bump this in docs. So I guess I'll say this depends on. Any comments on that?
Well, I'm confused as what needs to change. Right now, the docs say that there's a note that to use v01.0 of operator lib to handle this.
Yeah.
And then it has a note that 02 remove the status. So basically, Varsha's comment above that's hiding on the top of your screen, that is in the docs now, that note.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what needs to change?
Because when we do the release, this information on top will be outdated because we don't have a status anymore. And now it's a little bit confused because I was looking.
Sorry, Camilla. I think the point that this needs to be merged and changed back is when the v3 plugin becomes the default plugin. And that won't happen until it's v3 instead of v3 alpha.
Okay, so the status
That makes more
will
sense
be,
to me.
okay, so we will just do a release of the operator lib when we have the v3 alpha. So until there, the status package lib exists. Like just deprecated.
Yeah,
so status has been removed in 0.2 of operator lib.
Yeah.
We might want to add it back if we think that, like in a 0.2.1, if we think that it's going to be a while until there's a v3. But I think this is like a much broader question about what our support for anything beyond 0.18 is going to be, given the fact that bumping Kubernetes versions is now dependent upon the v3 alpha plugin. So I think like this is probably a separate conversation, but we need to get that v3 alpha plugin to be v3 like as soon as possible.
Yeah. And along that vein, unless there is an open issue for it, I will create an open issue for stabilizing the v3 alpha plugin and with like a list of things that need to get done upstream. And then I can link that back here.
We have a milestone there, v3 alpha plugin, with all issues that could be to v3 alpha, but we can like put just what is mandatory, just what it blocks us to stabilize it, as you suggest. I think it's good.
Okay, yeah, if there's a milestone already, then that's great. Okay.
But not all that is in this milestone should be like mandatory, has things that we could postpone anyway.
Right, but as soon as, well, so that milestone, I guess this isn't really relevant to the SDK, but that milestone should contain things that are necessary for the V3 alpha plugin to be stabilized. And then everything else we can bump into like the V4 alpha plugin milestone, which doesn't exist yet, but should.
Yeah, we can do that tomorrow. This is a good idea.
Okay. Sounds good. And I'll throw this in the backlog because we don't really know when this is going to happen. Provide a way to replicate Ansible Python environment of Docker images. Right. I think we were talking about this recently, where we would want to set up some sort of environment locally so that Ansible molecule tests can be run locally. But I think this is broader than that.
Grab that. Yeah, this is broader than that, although probably related. I tried to get in touch with Fabian, but he hasn't responded to me yet.
Yeah, I think he's been busy with something. Not sure.
I think this makes sense to do the requirements.txt like they suggest, but a requirements text would still be limited in the same ways that what they did was limited because it doesn't. There's dependencies of these other libraries, so it's not going to be deterministic, basically, even with the requirements.txt.
Right.
So we could use an alternative. We could like specify hashes, but I don't think that's really. I don't think we want to do that or need to do that. So I think a requirements text would be enough, even if it's not 100% reproducible.
All of
Okay.
the Python stuff you have to set up for this is the same setup you'd have to do if you were just using Ansible normally outside of an operator, correct?
Almost. There's a couple of extra ones. You wouldn't need Ansible Runner, for instance, but pretty much it's the same stuff. Yeah. So I just sort of feel like this is a requirements text would be a nice thing to have, but I feel like if you're using Ansible and Python, you should understand virtual environments.
Do you not need Ansible Runner for running locally?
Well, to run an operator locally, you need Ansible Runner. To run Ansible Playbook directly, you do not need Ansible Runner.
Okay. I think they're talking about make run, which will run the operator locally.
Right.
So you will need all of this. But
also, I mean, the way that you should develop an Ansible-based operator is that you run Ansible locally, completely outside of an operator first. You just run Ansible Playbook, you execute your role against a local cluster. And in order to do that, you don't have to have the SDK installed. You don't even have to know what the Operator SDK is. And in order to get that far, you need to have this environment set up. So that's my only hesitation here.
Okay.
Perhaps this is an upstream issue for just documenting setup for using the community K8s module. But maybe even upstreamer, it is documented on how to install Ansible.
Isn't this kind of the same
problem
issue that Jonathan was running into with the molecule tests?
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, I feel like from a user perspective, there's probably a good chunk of people that have come from Ansible and are, have their environment set up and it's all working. But I wouldn't be surprised if we have some set of users that are not coming directly from having an existing Ansible playbook and are like, oh, I know Ansible. I've done some other Ansible stuff before. Now I need to write an operator. So now I want to use this without necessarily having other things existing before. So I kind of buy it that it would be nice if there was like an easy button for Ansible operator make run to work just like it would for make run for Helm or Go.
Yeah, this is a very similar issue in my mind to the whole like make test problem that we had, where we had to download the mtest binaries. It's like
it's the exact same problem, but the solution that we were talking about for that was running those tests in a Docker container, which I don't think would apply here.
Well, the solution to that was actually writing and using a script that pulled down those mtest binaries. So like within the make file itself, you manage those dependencies. I don't think we need to do that here, but we do need to document how to set up and run Ansible operator locally and list all of those dependencies, so that when you do make run, you at least have somewhere to look so that you can install those.
Sorry, the first line says that, you know, they want to do make run and one has to set up an Ansible Python virtual environment. So it sounds like they understand that, but they couldn't figure out what the dependencies that they needed to set up in that environment.
Yeah.
Because there's no requirements text, they had to look at the Docker file, and it's not clear to them based on what they find in that example of the Docker file.
Yeah, that I think is very reasonable and very in line with what other Python projects do. But I don't think that it's at all in line with what other Python projects do to automatically install stuff into a virtual environment that the user doesn't necessarily even know about.
Well, I guess if we gave them the requirements text, would it install it automatically?
No, you pip install -r path to the requirements.txt, and so that will install it wherever your Python path is.
So it seems to me. I don't think so.
That I think would probably, for me, answer it.
What we have in our quick start is that we require that you've installed Ansible and all of that other stuff.
Right.
And we don't go and we don't talk about virtual environments, but you know, that's.
So to do that step, is that the same as calling pip install -r?
Well, once you're in a virtual environment, pip install -r will do this, but you would need to create the virtual environment separately.
What if you didn't have a virtual environment at all? What would it do?
It would fail unless you pass --user or sudo.
Got it. Do you think it would be reasonable for us to add to the quick start, like in line right before calling make run? Like, if you don't already have a virtual environment, create one with this and then run pip install -r.
Yes, that's reasonable. That's what most people do.
Okay.
Would anybody like to take on?
Yeah, go ahead and assign me. Okay. 1.3 will be fine.
Would this also, like, would that same set of steps? Yeah, well, never mind. I was going to ask if that same set of steps would solve the problem for running the tests, but
it would, but they wouldn't expect to need to run those set of steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least the versions and links to the packages are listed here. That's part of the way there, but yeah, we need to improve on that. Thanks, Austin.
We could also, I mean, we could even scaffold the requirements.txt.
Actually,
I mean, we don't, because they're installed into the base image, so you don't need it unless except for running locally.
I mean, at least what we could do is scaffold it in the SDK project somewhere, and then put a link to the the tagged release for the most recent release to download that requirements.txt.
Yeah, it's a little awkward, isn't it? But I'll give it a look and see what I can come up with.
All right, thank you.
So before we move on, what about so the user experience for Go and Helm is make run just straight up works, and that works because you don't have to install any prereqs because it's all Go based. Is there a way that we can have make run work where maybe it prompts, like it sends up an interactive prompt that says, hey, I detected you don't have a virtual environment set up. Do you want me to set one up and install the requirements for you? And it's just like a yes, no. And then from then on, we can detect that it's already there and just make run just works. That way you still like get the chance to see what's about to happen.
I mean, I like that user experience, but I don't want to be in the business of running pip for them. I feel like that's pretty far outside the scope of what any Python project would do.
Why don't we just start with documentation, and then if there are more requests for better user experience, then we can do something else, but minimal changes first.
Yeah.
Fail to watch resources. All right. This looks like they don't have mtest set up correctly because they can't even connect to the test cluster. Yeah, that's...
They're using 1.0, which doesn't have the fix in the make files.
Oh, which doesn't have...
the make test.
But you'd think that mtest would fail out sooner than that. It would be like, can't find this binary, panic. That's what I've seen before. I mean, maybe that's right. Also... Regardless, I can ask them to bump and see if they migrate and add that to their makefile, if that works. Would anybody volunteer?
What is the error? If you go,
they can't even connect to their cluster.
Connection.
Yeah.
I can look at it.
Would anybody like to volunteer to respond to this and ask them what their mtest setup looks like if they have those binaries installed?
I can do it, Eric. Jesus.
And this looks like a super port. How can we do functional tests in CI/CD pipeline by mocking Kubernetes resources for Go operators? All right, so they want to know how to set up functional end-to-end tests. And they say that they can't use mtest because you can't create services pods from inside the tests, but that's not true.
And can't they use a fake client too?
Yeah, so when you start mtest, you get this Rust config back, so you can actually create a client yourself for that test cluster. So I said that they can do that, and then alternatively, you can use scorecard custom tests, but that's not really great for end-to-end testing. So it looks like they did respond recently. So yeah, they're, I guess, following up to what I said. So I can continue to respond to this.
Does this sound more like they're wanting an actual end-to-end test, kind of like our end-to-end test where there's a controller manager?
They do say end-to-end tests. So that's, yeah, probably more what they want. But I was just, I guess, surprised that they thought they couldn't use mtest to create services and pods and whatnot.
I feel like that.
So
last
yeah,
comment,
maybe I should respond with.
Yeah, that last comment almost sounds like I want, when I delete my CR object, for something else to go and do the garbage collection of the services and pods. So I think it seems like they're asking, like, how do I do an EDE test? But yeah, you could clarify that.
Yeah, I was thinking.
So
just
I think we
linking
just
the
point them
end
to
tests in KubeBuilder.
Either that or even just right here in SDK now, that because we're basically copying in a Go file, and then I think we can point them to, I forget which file it is, but we basically have like a test, an it block that runs after we copy the files over and set up the project effectively, that runs a bunch of EDE tests, right? Let me see if I can show you the link I'm talking about.
Yeah, where we have like a template controller.
It's this one here, the cluster test. So Camilla hasn't changed this over to be based on the sample yet, but the eventual goal, I put in the Zoom chat, but the eventual goal is to have the Go EDE test just copy over and use a temporary version of our scaffolded Go sample. So basically, like, their project is the Go sample, and then here's how you can run some EDE tests against your Go sample, potentially. It might be a little bit different because we use the KubeBuilder test context, which maybe they don't, maybe that doesn't make sense for them to use, but it at least gives an example.
We have a documentation now in production as well.
Okay, I'll use that in this example to respond. All right, and this last one, run package manifest does not work for webhooks in Cert Manager. All right, so Varsha and I responded that OLM is not supposed to work with Cert Manager, and that's documented in their documentation. I guess part of the problem is we don't link any OLM docs related to webhooks in our OLM integration docs. So unless they've looked at the OLM documentation, which they should have, but still might not have, they won't know that this is the case. And also there's one other thing that I would like to discuss that I figured out during writing my demo for KubeCon, which revolves around adding a patch to add webhook ports to your manager deployment that I would like to talk about in OLM documentation. So I just added a documentation link to this, or documentation label to this, because that's how we would solve this problem. Camilla, does that make sense to you?
Yes, are you trying to follow up the steps now and use the latest version of your Operator Lifecycle Manager to do the test? I will let you know if I face an issue, but I believe in you folks.
So I think the TLDR there is, in the samples, we shouldn't use the webhook or the Cert Manager stuff. And like, all we need to do is comment those things out and then everything should work. Is that what I'm hearing?
We need to use it because we need to test in the cluster, the other tests. I think my idea was just one comment to run the package manifest and after, comment and uncomment again, just for the package manifests.
Yeah. Okay, so we have two different tests. We have one that runs make deploy, and we have one that runs run package manifests. And Camilla, what you're saying is make deploy, we should use Cert Manager. Run package manifests, we need to comment it out, rebuild the package manifests, and then run package manifests.
Yes, This is the way that I'm trying to solve that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for explaining that.
No, really thank you for your support, folks.
Cool. So I think this is at least the documentation part of like webhook not working with cert manager. Here's how you actually set up webhooks can be done fairly straightforward. I can handle that, and I think I can get that done in 1.3. Okay, any other questions on this? Awesome. Okay. Oh, I didn't add this to a milestone. Okay. And then, yeah, this, Austin, I think you're gonna handle this. Who was supposed to handle it?
Yeah. I'll do that.
Great. Okay. So that's it for all the issues that need to be triaged. Does anybody have, first of all, any other issues that they would like to bring up and discuss? And if not, any other questions?
So 4217, I did not sign up for that one. I thought it was the one that we closed as a do.
So this, basically what I said was this needs to be recreated upstream.
Okay, so this really is a dupe of the other one. And I am gonna, so the other one, I think that's what we decided to do for that one too. Either way, I'll talk with you and Camilla offline.
Okay.
Okay. You closed 4210, I think.
Right.
And 4217 references at the bottom of the.
The other
original.
was mine as well. Sorry, folks. I didn't.
So I guess this is also a duplicate of 3798. Whoops. All right. Okay, cool. So everything's done. All right. I guess that's it, unless anybody has any other questions.
This, I think, is not duplicated because it is other stuff. Just to show, if you go in the description, okay, this is something that I think is strange. I doesn't know if we can improve that. For example, if you will list the comments, all comments, okay, if you will change that one for generic one, and it doesn't show more the comments, the options that, the sub-comments that we have, it's fine. But if you is still showing, which I believe that we will still showing after change for the generic text, I doesn't know, then it's strange, you know, because we see there, for example, use the create webhook or the edit one, but these ones are not valid options for Helm or for Ansible.
Okay, yeah, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this isn't a direct duplicate.
Wait, so Camilla, you're saying that if you've got a Helm project and you go and run Operator SDK-H inside the Helm project, it outputs a subcommand that shows create, and then you can run Operator SDK create-H, and you're saying in that case, even in a Helm project, it shows create webhook?
Yeah, yes, shows all options, the Go options, the default plugin options, which in our case is the Go options. So for example, the edit option, we have it just for Go because no makes sense for the Ansible or Helm. Then if I try to use the edit one, I will see the error like it is subcommand that doesn't exist. No, working on.
This might end up being the same issue, like the same underlying issue. Because it sounds like you're saying the default help text says that something exists, but it doesn't. And the issues we were talking about before is, yeah, that default help text shouldn't be there. We should just write something generic.
Yeah, depends. If we will remove the available commands for the generic one, yes. If not, then it's not a duplicate.
So here it is slightly different, only because we delegate which commands are going to be shown to Cobra, and we delegate what help text is going to be shown to the plugin itself, both done incorrectly. So this is like, we need to tell Cobra that a command doesn't exist for a particular plugin.
I swear
we just
that.
add. I don't.
I could be wrong, but I thought we covered that.
Yeah, maybe we did. I can't exactly remember, but maybe we, let's just keep this open for now. And if it is a duplicate, like if it's all by the same patch, then we can close it as duplicate. If not,
yeah, that works.
The solution above could solve the problem, but I don't know if it's the best approach or the approach that we would like to achieve.
all right. Okay, so I won't assign this. I can assign this to myself. I'm pretty sure I at least know where the fix is. And if it is fixed by 3798 or whatever it was, then I'll close this out. All right. So we're almost out of time. Are there any other questions? Great. Well, that concludes our triage meeting. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. Very productive meeting. And we will see you at our next meeting.
Thank you for all.
Thanks, sir.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot.